Good morning, beautiful YouTube community. Just clearing the energy with this bell, bringing all of us into a state of centeredness and equanimity and peace. We might have to ring this bell a couple times today. Today we're going to have a potentially triggering conversation. And before I begin, I want to share that the topic and the people involved in the topic that I'm going to discuss today, these are not bad or evil or wrong people, okay? In many cases, these are hurt people, and sometimes hurt people hurt people. And keeping this in mind, I want to share this message, and I'm giving this message truly as just trying to disclose and discuss an open conversation about a shadow of transhumanism that I see moving through the spiritual community. And my goal is to try to help everyone who hears this message heal and to remember their unified love, power, and wisdom of their original source. And I feel that I'm really being inspired to share this deep message that I want you to know it's coming from my heart. And in many ways, it's quite vulnerable and hard for me to share some of this. And I do think it might be hard for some people in the spiritual community to really hear and receive this message. And yet I feel strongly enough that this message is both important and needing to be spoken as wisdom for the larger collective that I share here. And so if this message is going to trigger some egos, and we all know what happens when that happens, it can create momentary denial or repression or anger. I just want to begin by saying that this is not meant to do that. It's meant to heal, and this is not a scary message. And no matter where you are or who you are, and no matter what path you're currently walking, we all have a lot of choice right now in this Aquarian season moment. And so I feel like my inner guidance to keep talking about this subject is because the moment is now. And while I talk about this subject today, I hope to give some real examples, and by doing so, I hope to provide context to what I'm talking about and some of the things that I'm seeing in the online spiritual community world, and also sharing some of my own personal experiences. And the reason I feel I'm compelled to do this talk is because, one, I have lived this, and so I feel like I can speak to it with more clarity than most people can. And again, I feel like this is a message that simply needs to be shared with a broader audience. Right now, I'm hearing so many voices that are sharing the counter message to this, and that's the part that I find deeply concerning. And I think it's really important and healthy for our society at large for the opposite and opposing perspective to be shared. And I am a person who's very capable of holding very delicate and intricate nuance. And I am a person who has studied a lot and had a lot of experiences. And so I share this because I think it can be helpful. So again, today, furthering the last 2 posts or 3 posts I've done, I want to continue to talk about spiritual technology. Spiritual technology is a term that you might be seeing if you turn into certain spiritual teachers. Now, maybe this isn't in your circle. That's great, okay? Be discerning when you see this. But I want to begin by just really thinking through the concept of spiritual technology, because in many ways, this is just an oxymoron. And an oxymoron is something that is like a contradiction unto itself. It's like, I tried to explain this in the post I did where I shared a etymological dictionary that was printed in the year 1751. And I did so in an attempt to try to help people begin to look at what they're saying when they're telling you that they're going to activate your spiritual technology. So first, technology, as you saw in the etymological dictionary, and you can go see that video if you'd like, it's two things by definition of its etymological root word, okay? And it means that it is both artificial and mechanical. And then additionally, I showed that what spirit is. And spirit is clearly not either of these things. Spirit is not artificial and spirit is not mechanical. So basically, when someone tells you that they're trying to use or that you have spiritual technology or gives you this idea, and they're going to use their spiritual technology to upgrade you or activate your gifts or your body or whatever's going on, because there's so many different ways this is being used by so many different people. But when you hear that, that's pretty much a way for you to discern that someone is saying, I work with AI. A pretty word for AI technology. Spiritual technology is, I feel, like a pretty dressed up, beautiful word for AI technology. And spirit does deal in many ways with the astral mental plane, okay? We could call this the realm of the mind, and it is not, and it can be, like we live in a world where there's both. Mind can be both mechanical and artificial. That's the moment we're at in history. So I'm just wanting to communicate that if we want a future that involves mind control and mind control programming and nefarious agendas from interdimensionals that want to have access to our body temples, if we want that to happen, or if you're somebody who happens to be working with this, I want you to be aware that, like, when you're engaging with this type of oracular energy and you're calling it this, and this is real in esotericism, okay, in spiritual arts, like there is something called revelation of the method. And so if you hear someone talking about technology, I want you to be aware of this, because yesterday morning, I had this old friend call me who lives in Kansas City, and he said that he literally went on a date with a woman, and this is his words, that was half AI. And he could tell that something was off. He's like, it looked like a duck, it sounded like a duck, but like it wasn't. And I'm like, how is this happening? Like 10 years ago, this was not even something in the realm of possibility. And now I personally, just with the communities that I'm involved in, I'm seeing this. And so in a way, I want to like whistle blow and like kind of snap people out of the slow trickle. What's the proverbial pot, like the proverbial frog boiling in the pot? I want to like, hey, snap out of this. And why is this being able to happen? Like, I don't exactly know. Many people are engaged online. Many people are using apps. Many people are engaging with AI programs. Many people are signed up for social media. So it's like we never know like the spiritual dimension of something we're engaging in so clearly until we have like profound awakenings and we're like, this pop cultural trend that's happening. And pop cultural trends happen in any community, okay? They happen in sports communities, they happen in business communities, they happen in spiritual communities as well. And, this cultural trend of spiritual tech and spiritual technology, I've noticed that the algorithms, not surprisingly, are kind of favoring these platforms and this content. And I think that's causing more people to want to bring it in and use it as their own, which is fine. This is like a free will choice universe. And I deeply understand that some people are here with the soul contracts to choose this timeline. But I also, having been, and I'm going to explain kind of my experience with this, but having experienced I feel like the dark side of this, I want to try to communicate a message that, I'm going to start giving examples. So like there's someone who's quite popular in the light language community, And this is definitely something she's promoting. I've actually heard her call her audience guinea pigs. And first of all, if someone's ever calling you a guinea pig, like, red flag, that person does not see you on their level, and that should signal to you a sign of like spiritual narcissism. And I've also heard this same person say to her audience of many people, implants are good, chips are good. And while, in rare, unique cases, like a chip or an implant may be good, but like by and large, for all the people that this person's interacting with, this is entirely detrimental. Like, anytime you do something to an organic system, like you give it a prescription pill or you imprint a chip or it's like a pharmaceutical. You give a body a pharmaceutical pill and yeah, maybe you're solving a temporary symptom, but at the same time, you're affecting other periphery systems of the organism, and there are unintended consequences. And this teacher talks about like how AI is good, and so many people seem to be like drinking the Kool-Aid in a sense. I just feel sad that this is like part of what is in the light language community, because I feel like light language is such a powerful tool when you are receiving that language from your organic soul rhythm, or you're connecting to like the tree language, like the ancient druidic tree language, or you're connecting to angelic tones and frequencies. Like, there's so much here that is good. And again, like I said at the beginning, not all people doing this are like 90% bad or wrong or evil. It's just like there is a level of unconsciousness that I'd like to have awakened so that there can be systemic change. And you can commune with animals, and you can commune with crystals, and like, this is real stuff. And there's also a lot of elemental beings that are also infected with like transhumanistic, post-humanistic agendas. And that's just something that we need to, as practitioners of spiritual and healing arts, we need to be aware of this. And when we see this happening in our communities, we need to be bold and loud. And it's kind of interesting because I've noticed that when I try to talk to people about this, one of the things they'll often say back to me is like, well, Emily, you're in separation consciousness. And I personally find this to be a total gaslight, because I promise you, like, in reality, I'm really thinking with my whole heart and my whole unified communion with God, and I'm speaking from my body, and I'm speaking through my lived experiences. And so when people tell me that like I'm in a separation consciousness as I'm calling this out, at first I like examined that, and I was like, am I? But as I like really started to pull back the levels and layers of pieces, and to examine this for many months from like a very pulled back perspective, I feel like I'm here to share this message. So I started to ask myself, like, well, what is being presented with this spiritual technology? Like, what is it? How's it happening? And in most cases, it's being presented as an initiation or an activation of some type. And so let's just take activation, for example. Okay, so maybe an implant or a chip or some type of spiritual technology could activate a spiritual gift for you. But even if it could, that would be like a short-term solution. And it's very different from the real thing. Because the real thing, like the real Tibetan spiritual master, like enlightened real thing monk, has spent 20 years in our hermitage studying multiple like 12-hour days for years and years and years and years and years, and cultivating this level of equanimity within the mind to be able to handle the spiritual force of a true Kundalini awakening, when they have that experience, that blast of Shakti, they're prepared for it. And when you get that and you're unprepared for that, like, you're asking for years and years, and I mean years of purification and integration that will unfold. And a teacher that I admire and study with is Igor Kufeyev, and he's this Polish Kundalini specialist. He was an artist. He had an awakening young. And he talks about how even the purest of the pure souls, like a Tibetan monk who is prepared to have this awakening and has been taught all about Kundalini, it would take that type of a person a full 3 years to complete the process. And he also talks about how for most just beings that this happens to, this is easily known to be a 12-year cycle or a 10-year cycle at the minimum to fully process this type of spiritual integration. And so I'm just asking you to see this from this perspective of like these true masters. And if you are like unprepared to handle the force of this energy, and this happens to you prematurely, it's entirely possible that you will, in the purification and in the integration process, you will really be asked by God to lose your mind, to like go insane. And when I say the word insane, like, I want you to know, I think we're living in insane times. I think it is so insane for a woman to be vying after a pair of Louboutin shoes or a Louis Vuitton bag that was made in a factory where children are overworked in horrible conditions. Like, that to me is insanity. And I think it's insane that like so many men are turning to like porn and OnlyFans and these like quick fixes, and they'd rather jack off than actually like kiss like a real woman. This is insanity. These are the insane times that we're living in. And so to untangle yourself and to purify from insanity, sometimes you have to go on these very deep purification processes. And if Kundalini has chosen you, then you're forced to do that. And so people are wanting to just like activate spiritual technology to avoid, I think, what it really takes to be a spiritual master, which is years and years and years of devotion and practice and commitment and purification and concentrated work. And in America, it's like, okay, so like people my age in their 30s and 40s, it's seriously not uncommon for these millennials to, I don't know, it depends on the man, it depends on the woman, it depends on all types of things. But I have met people that have had upwards to like 50 sexual partners or 100 sexual partners. And in yogic philosophy, like, a man realizes that when he enters a woman's body temple, he's not just entering a woman's body. He's not just getting this pleasure. He's literally entering a level and frequency of consciousness. And depending on that level and frequency of consciousness that specific woman holds, he will then have that type of energy in his life. Okay, so if he's entering a bunch of low vibe women or really, really powerful women, either way, he's going to have that energy. And in yogic tradition, if he's like a pure master, okay, he will be with that woman Shakti for 4 years. And if it's like just a regular, like sort of unpurified man, he will likely spend upward to 7 years. He'll be carrying around this woman's energy and Shakti and being involved with her ancestors and her DNA and her trauma and all that. And then we have these guys who are like, they like listen to all the 90s pop songs. They want to be like a baller, 20-inch blades on the Impala, caller, get laid tonight. Like, they're just like thinking that is so cool to be a player, and all their bros are like, yeah, dude, did you score with her? And this truly is like this is like the crux of like insanity, okay? Because it's truly abusive. Like, to be a player is actually to be an abuser, because so many men in America, I can't speak for overseas. I know a lot of this community is European, but men have lost touch with what it means to be with women's bodies, to care for their emotional bodies, to care for their emotional needs, to care for their system, their sensitive system. And like in yogic science, a woman's system, because she can milk a baby and she can grow a baby, it's 11 times more sensitive. And so many women have numbed and dulled and like given the sacredness, a part of them, away. And they're like acting from this place of the Jezebel spirit. And the Jezebel spirit, like, what's a Jezebel spirit? Jezebel spirit is like a woman that would like knowingly know that a man is married and still try to seduce like another woman's man, okay? Like, it's wild here in America. I want people to know how wild it is. And anyways, I'm not going to go down this whole open this door to the sexual tangent, because I could really talk on this, but I want to stay on the topic of spiritual technology. So what I'm trying to convey is that there's really no replacement for true spiritual awakening. And to deeply, deeply do this, you've got to see the insanity in the world. And you've got to see your own insanity. And you might even have to go insane. And there's no pill, there's no quick fix to true spiritual devotion and purity for years at a time. And I do believe that like what happened to me, I think that the only reason I was able to make it through it, the worst parts of it, was because of my mom and dad. Had I not had the support system and the care that I had, and maybe that's why it did actually happen to me, because God knew that I would have the support to get through a Kundalini awakening of such a huge magnitude. And I think mine was unique because it included a walk-in, and I don't think that happens often. But I would have personally ended up homeless. I would have ended up insane. I would have been broke. Like, my life would have been destroyed if I had not had the support that I have had to get through what I went through. And so when I see the carelessness around this, it's just like, I have to talk about this. I have to share my voice, because I don't want what I went through to just be in vain and have no purpose. Like, I'm sharing my voice to help. And I really see that this is going on in the spiritual community. And, another example I want to give is the Sophia Code. And I'm going to read you this page. It's page 206. It's near the top. And it says, quote, "Your body is asking for you to understand that it's a highly loving and responsive supercomputer. Yet, it does not want to be held responsible for the outcome of your life." Okay, this is a dangerous sentence. Like, I want to delete, cross out, remove this entire concept. Your body is not a supercomputer. Your body is an intelligible, organic organism. You have organs, you have blood, you have DNA. Your body is certainly partly responsible for the outcomes of your life. Like, I'm thinking of Jesus, and like, there is no, it's like faith without works. Like, it does matter what your body does. And you are a part of nature, and nothing about you is mechanical and artificial. And so when I see this type of language, and I see this all over the place. Okay, this is just one example. And again, it's not that these people are bad or wrong, but it is that they, like all of us, myself included, like everybody is working through a lot of purification. So I'm just pointing this out to be like, we gotta watch ourselves as oracles in what we're creating. And we need to take radical responsibility for the words we're using. So if you hear someone talking about tech, like, be advised and be discerning and be aware that this person is likely using revelation of the method and revealing their method, and also be aware that like there are so many spiritual leaders popping up, and this is such a complicated and complex time. And we need to be brave enough to talk about this and to talk about the pitfalls and hardships and the pain that we've individually suffered. And you know, like in spiritual community, there's so much human spiritual bypassing going on. It's like, oh, we're all just spiritual, we're all just one. It's like, yeah, we are, but we're also not. And we need to have nuance, and we need to have duality, and we need to be in our bodies. And it's like in poetry, there's the great teaching that the particular is within the eternal, and the eternal is in the particular, but they both have their part. We are human beings. We are organic. We eat vegetables. We drink water. We don't have a little metal cord that we need to plug into a wall outlet, okay? We need to balance this strange oneness happening with like our actual individuality and the quality of our life. And we've chosen to incarnate specifically into human bodies. We're 5-pointed star bodies. And so much spirituality wants you to just leave your body out of the relationship of your life. And you don't need anyone else's technology, and you don't want anyone messing with your biological systems. And really what you need is a connection to your bones and your blood and your amazing, beautiful spine and a deep, fulfilling relationship to God. That is really all you need. And you know, sometimes I feel like love is fierce and tough. Like if a mom has a little baby and that baby's about to run out into the road and get hit by a car or fall headfirst into a fire, like the mom will be loud and she'll say, no, stop, wake up, you know, like that's the type of energy that I feel coming from that which I want to share. And there are such things as extreme and profound spiritual cities and gifts of like teleportation and bilocation and levitation. And this is very, very real. And mage frequency and miracle frequency and magical frequencies, like these are real. But the yogic techniques and the type of attainment that comes from serious spiritual, like lifetimes of spiritual study, daily devotion. And so I feel bad. I feel bad for people that are unprepared and have these Kundalini awakenings. And then I know from experience, you're so confused, you're disoriented, you're fearful, you're in America. Here we have this weird technocratic technological system in place. And there's all these people, and you can find them on the internet, and they're sharing all this information. And you're so confused, and it kind of feels good to just listen to somebody who has an experience kind of like you, even though it's nothing like your experience, but at least it's kind of similar. So like you open yourself up to this teacher or this book or this thing, and you know, like I can actually pinpoint exactly where I was the very first time I was ever introduced to the frequency of spiritual tech, AI. I know the place I was, I know the people I was with. I know the exact moment that that frequency entered my timeline. And of course, back then I wouldn't have seen it from the way I can see it now, but you know, that was about 7-ish years ago. So I can personally tell you for sure that this energy has been on the planet for a while. But I have never had a friend call me up and be like, I just went on a date with a human that was half AI. So like, this is a whole new level. And in sharing this message, like I really want there to be some systemic change, and for this message to be clear enough and loud enough and bold enough and honest enough and authentic enough that people can hear it and receive it. And again, I just want to say, people who are involved in this, they're like 99% amazing humans, and they likely have the best of intentions. But on the road to hell, it is often paved with good intentions. And so we need to, you know, call into question everything that is asking us to disregard our humanity in some way. And like, if someone's ever presenting a question to you, like, what is it like if we are at war? Like, from personal experience, just don't engage. And I guess this is a message of asking people to have a discerning eye, because when you're just waking up and you're fresh out of an incredible Kundalini experience, and like for me, I had no idea what Kundalini was. For the first 5 weeks of my Kundalini awakening, I hadn't even put it together that that's what had happened. And I was literally like, I couldn't sleep at all. I had the most powerful, hot energy surging through my body. I was having all types of movements up my spine. I was experiencing like tons of sexual energy and symptoms and emotions. And finally, I went searching for like, what is happening to me? I've always been a great sleeper. Why have I been awake for a month? And so I want there to be this honest conversation about how truly hard this experience is. And also, if you have someone in your life, like I know right now, I have a couple of friends who I actually met at a Kundalini retreat in Portugal, and I think they're listening right now. And you guys know, like, this is a serious energy. And so I feel like we need more people talking about how this energy is not like a child's play energy game. There is serious potency, and it requires a lot of practice and a lot of discernment and support and time and devotion to make it through the Kundalini process. And you need so much love and so much tenderness and so much self-healing. And I'm speaking on this from a place of love and universal compassion for all beings, because I care, and I don't want other people to go through some of the experiences that I had to go through. And I also want people to know that if they are going through some of those experiences, that it's okay, that they can get fully through it and they can come out the other side, and they can actually be more wise and loving and powerful for having ever gone through it. But if, you're seeing someone be like, oh, you're going through a really hard time, I have some spiritual technology for that. Maybe just like, I'll leave it with you. And I emphasize again that there is just no replacement to the real thing of a genuine spiritual awakening. And in almost all cases, to have the real genuine experience, you're going to go into some dark night of the soul. And it could be like total chaos. It could be a mental breakdown. It could be a deep depression. It could be overwhelming grief. It could be and involve all types of other things. And we used to have like places on our earth, like temples and schools and masters that could help us engage with the spiritual dimension of our life. And now what we have is like a ton of people wanting to take like a hero dose of mushrooms. And I'm not saying that taking a hero dose of mushrooms is always going to mean you get a Kundalini awakening. You can take mushrooms, or you can smoke DMT, and you can have some visions. And Igor talks about like you can get some pranic activity, but a little pranic activity is no Kundalini awakening, and it's a much different thing. And in my personal experience, I took 0.17 micrograms of psilocybin. So if you're familiar, that's like a microdose of a microdose of a microdose. It's just like a tiny little bit. And I personally could have never foreseen that moment would have changed my life the way that it did. And now being to the place where I've worked through the regret and the grief and the trauma and the sorrow and the confusion and the fear and all the other things that come with it, I really just want to share this message so that other people can just trust in natural organic intelligence, the original design, which is so far away from anything that is artificial or mechanical. It's like light years away from those types of things. And remember that working with spirit is very different than working with tech. And be discerning when people actively and openly are using language like that. And I feel like I've repeated myself a lot, but hopefully I feel like the main points of my message have come through. And I hope each and every one of you have a great day. it feels like the end of this flow of energy. And yeah, I'm just sending love and forgiveness and compassion to all people. And if this message has helped you in any way, or you find that it's an important conversation, please give a thumbs up, leave a comment, share with a friend who might be going through a dark time. And remember that we're all walking each other home, and our perspectives are needed and necessary for true healing to occur. Much love.